We're going to talk tonight about the state of the influencer industry, how it's being impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, and what's to come in the following months. But to start, next year, 2021, will be the 10-year anniversary of rewardStyle and toKnow.it. For those who aren't familiar with you or your company, how would you summarize what you do?
Well, rewardStyle really took a traditional sales model and then modernized it through the creation of a technology platform. So let me tell you what I mean. Prior to launching rewardStyle, I was a personal shopper. And that meant that I negotiated a commission on sales with stores all over my city. So I would guide the purchasing of my personal clients by bringing wardrobes, outfits, accessories, full looks into their home, and I would personally style them based on those clothes that I had pulled from all over town. In 2010, I actually launched a website to market that service. And I quickly found that what I was doing was called blogging. And it turned out my customers actually really preferred to go to the blog as opposed to booking appointment time with me, having me come into their home, schlepping clothes back and forth. The only problem with this was that I could only make money offline. And so I didn't earn anything when they bought stuff from my blog based on the recommendations that I had put together. So while stores were still getting the sales, I actually wasn't earning any commission. And so I had set up this entire business that I was investing a lot in, from having a website and a photographer, spending time every day doing these 3 blog posts, doing a newsletter, and had in fact cut myself out of my own business. So in 2011, my then boyfriend and now husband and I created a platform that really modernized the business of personal shopping. And what we did was we brought that commission on sales model online through a platform. So we created a B2B platform where a hand-selected group of bloggers were welcomed into pre-negotiated relationships with online retailers. We gave them the publishing tools to guide their followers to shop through their posts. And at the time, we were monetizing blogs. That's really all that there was. From a social media standpoint, there was Facebook and Twitter. Everything was happening from a desktop. And so I think that context is really important for how we approach the industry. And so today, when you think of what rewardStyle has become almost 10 years later, we're a platform where the world's top digital creators are running their businesses. So this is where, where you and I log into, Google and Zoom every day, they log into rewardStyle and toKnow.it. They're managing their brand relationships, the publishing tools, both from mobile and desktop, their retail analytics, their collaborations, their flat rate work, their content licensing, their growth consulting team is there. And it's where they run their entire businesses. On the other side of that marketplace, there's 5,000 global brands that do the exact same thing on rewardStyle.com. So they're running their scaled influencer marketing business, including what we call their distributed sales force, which are these sellers. They're doing collaborations, content licensing, and even more through this platform. In much the same way, when you look to other industries of what an Etsy, an Airbnb, a Shopify has done to create a technology platform that empowers these solopreneurs by taking really all the crap out of business and letting them just focus on their core competency. That's what we did for the creator business, really starting about 10 years ago, and have really pioneered that ever since.
Yeah. And you recently launched toKnow.it shopping video. Do you want to talk a little bit about how that feature is different than video capabilities on other social media platforms?
Yeah, so content has obviously really evolved over the last 10 years. We started out, monetizing blogs, and then into Pinterest and social media platforms like Instagram that were mobile, and then mobile closed social. Snap was the same as kind of Instagram as far as being that walled garden. Of course, we have even more platforms today. And so, we launched the toKnow.it shopping app in 2017 as a new publishing platform for influencers. And this was a place intended for them to make their entire lives shoppable. So yes, you might see content there from other places that they're publishing on the web, but they're also putting more of their life in there and just making everything about whether it's where they're traveling or their home or what they're wearing completely shoppable. And so, creators are attracting followers really across a myriad of platforms, and toKnow.it gives their shopping audience really the most efficient and useful consumption experience. And it was really created for that intent-driven shopper who today discovers on her phone. So I'm giving you this context so you kind of understand where we're coming from with video. In the first 9 months of the app, we reached 1 million users. And in the first 6 months of this year, shoppers purchased $500 million worth of product from the Like to Know It app. And last month, we had the 8th annual rewardStyle, the conference, which is the largest global influencer conference. And we launched Like to Know It shopping video to those 8,000 attendees. So let's actually take a look at that product, and I'll talk to it a little bit more. So if you guys have the video. So to kind of answer your direct question, like what are the differences with video? Really, Like to Know It shopping video is an expansion of a product that's already working. So our biggest difference is just going to be sales volume. Brand adoption, we have 5,000 retailers who are live and linkable within this product, who are integrated into our ecosystem technically. And then of course we have influencer monetization built in. So this isn't something where you're running an ad unit or you're linking to a single product. It's not something that's available to just a select few within our ecosystem. Nearly 100,000 influencers can now use this media type to create. And this summer, Like to Know It became the #1 source of influencer-driven commerce. And this is really just a new media type within that ecosystem. So it's unique when you think about video in that you have to think of the context. This is someone who's in the Like to Know It app. They're in the process of shopping. That customer is not there to be entertained. They're not there to learn how to dance. They're not there to learn who is getting married or divorced or looking at political news. They're literally going shopping. And so this tool really empowers creators to bring an emotional value to products, which is something that I think you can only do by placing them in the context of someone's real life. And so by better understanding, product origin or quality or selection or context of use, we believe that this will drive really massive outcomes for influencers and brands. We have a shared goal of driving retail sales.
Yeah. And you've been a player in the influencer industry since its inception. How would you describe the state of the industry today, and how would you say it's being impacted by COVID-19?
Yeah, COVID has had a huge impact on the industry. And I think certainly one of the most underestimated parts of any business is really the impact of factors outside of our own control. Both tailwinds and headwinds that kind of change the rules of the game. And there's a number of things that we've really seen changing the business of influence over the last few months. And so I'll walk through just a couple of those. First is, when globally we all moved to work from home, influencers really started focusing on the things that fit that lifestyle. So they're moving away from party wear and travel content and makeup, and they're moving into skincare, loungewear, home gyms, home offices. So they really expanded the categories of content that they were talking about. We in the Like to Know It app launched the LTK Stay Home campaign. And that allowed influencers a single place to put all the content that was really about life at home and thriving at home. Influencers actually put about 450,000 pieces of original content into that bucket in the first half of this year. So they really leaned into giving people really the tools to have a better life at home. So that sort of expansion of content was meaningful. The second thing is that retail stores closed, and when you think about the influencer industry and they're driving online sales, before this, online was still only about 10% of what's happening in the retail space. So overnight, when you close these stores, you're actually forcing customers who are already shopping online are now shopping online more. Then you're forcing those who have never shopped online to try it and to learn how. And how are they doing that? They're really learning about what products and where to shop through influencers. On the other side of that, from the marketing side, when these stores are closed, offline liabilities were really building. And so you think about, all of the retail space and just kind of the real estate bill of a lot of these organizations, or for furloughing employees, it became quite expensive. And so we saw that with store closures offline, that these businesses really started to focus on outcomes and really sales. And when you think about what was the customer doing, like they're not able to go shopping, they're not going to the movies, they're 6 feet from their friend if they're with their friend. Their consumption increased materially. And I think that was pretty widely reported that it was around like 30% increase across most social platforms. And influencers really became this window to the world. And this was really a perfect time for marketers, because nuance is required, both on a global scale with, what country are you even talking to and what's happening with that space, but especially even just domestically within the US. We saw that different states had different rules and regulations, and what an influencer in Boston was able to do, an influencer in San Francisco was not. And so as a brand, it becomes very difficult to navigate what type of content that you're going to put into the ecosystem. And so being able to pass that to an influencer who has a very niche audience, and letting them decide when they wear that dress, do they need to also wear a mask? Well, if it's acceptable for her age group and her demographic and her region, then she'll know that and she'll put that in the context, versus other places who maybe, weren't required to wear them. And so that kind of the nuance that was required, brands were really able to lean on influencers for that. We saw tons of promotional activity, which influencers love. It gives them something to talk about, and it really worked in converting customers. And then I think one of probably the biggest things that we've all felt, even outside of the influencer ecosystem, is really just, starting in March, we began to see more socio-political dialogue across social platforms than ever before. And that really reached an apex in about June. And so, that dialogue across these myriad of current events transformed a social media use case in just a few months' time. So you kind of started to see the dissolution of escapism via social media content and what was appropriate to post perhaps in December of 2019 became suddenly distasteful, by June 2020. And so with that, we saw that influencers started being very intentional with where they put what type of content. And so you started to see sort of a fracturing of it not just being all dumped into a single place, but being very thoughtful. And so, we saw that rewardStyle influencers actually created 43% more like-to-know-it content in the first half of this year. And I would say that's in large part because shopping content for the majority of this year has been distasteful on other platforms, given everything that's really happening in the world.
Yeah, those are all great points. How would you say the rise of technology and influencers has disrupted the fashion world, especially New York Fashion Week?
Yeah. It's important to understand the history of Fashion Week. And it was something that was created in the 1920s to really show store buyers and the media, the magazines at the time, what would be available for next season. And as we all know, that was achieving some sales and marketing goals. But it was super long lead times because it's stores buying for fall. It's giving magazines time to decide what they're going to write about and get it into print. And so long lead was totally normal back at that time. And really, when you think about Fashion Week, so if this is sales and marketing activity, it's anything that you do and invest in is going to be about business and driving outcomes. And really, technology changes consumer expectations. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by this. Used to, I grew up in an era where you went down the street to Blockbuster on Friday night, you walked up and down the aisles, you looked behind the box to see if the video was there, if you were able to get it. You saw your friends there. It was a part of just common culture. And then, overnight, one of the largest publicly traded companies in the world, essentially it flipped. And all of a sudden you saw that, hey, streaming became available. They didn't have streaming, and everyone just wanted to sit at home and watch Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu, or now the millions of streaming services that you have. And so that changed culture, it changed business because of what technology did, and it just made it easier for you to consume. And I would say in much the same way as what we've seen with the fashion industry, where used to, it was that Blockbuster experience where you got the magazine a few months later, you were looking for those kind of specialty items. But when really social platforms changed the game, because and even blogs to a little extent, but social pushed it way forward, where you were immediately seeing these clothes. So from a technology perspective, the way that we thought about it is we have always been about business. We're trying to sell a lot of things to a lot of people. And so for us, we really felt like the goals remained the same, but the tools had changed. And so in 2014, we actually powered the first ready to shop runway, which today might sound like an obvious thing. Anyone who was doing runways and over the last several years was doing ready to shop, but CNN actually came and covered it. It was this huge novel thing. We spent months and months with the brand, the retailer, the manufacturer, getting all of this ready to power it. The next year we hosted a digital ready to shop runway on our Instagram handles. And that was novel too. It was the first time that you could actually, instead of going to a runway show, you were actually seeing it on Instagram. This year, fast forward five years later, we've activated our network of influencers around fall trends. So we're both looking at the data of what we have and what they're already talking about, and then also polling them about what they believe is going to be in fashion. And then they're putting out content that's ready to shop now. And social media has changed things where they don't want to see a boot that may or may not actually even be manufactured in the next 6 months. It's essentially a waste from a marketing perspective. And so I guess I point back to with Fashion Week, how, whether we like it or don't like it or like the outcome, it's really technology that's driving all of this change.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to open it up to, we have a lot of audience questions coming in. So let's take those. The first one here is there still room for someone to become an influencer with how inundated it is and how fashion is changing? Yeah,
absolutely. I have exciting news for you, and that is that our class of 2020 is the most productive in our history. And so what productivity means to us is their ability to earn. So whenever they create a post, how much are they earning per post? There's a lot of different kind of metrics that we are looking at. And today people want to shop from their peer group and other people. They want to shop from the girl next door, or the guy next door, or the family next door. And so they're looking side to side. Also, algorithms have really made this into a nation of niche. And so if by truly being yourself, you're going to attract people who have those similarities with you, regardless if those are physical attributes or where you live regionally or how many children you have or whatever those attributes are. You're going to be able to attract a niche audience. And I think one of the most exciting things when we look at our rewardStyle millionaires, we have now well over 100 rewardStyle millionaires. That's women who have earned over $1 million through our platform. Their average following is around 500,000. The lowest following on that list is around 30,000. And so you can do a lot with a little by reaching those niche audiences. So it's not too late.
This kind of ties in with the next question. Do you work with micro as much as you do with macro? And do you feel COVID-19 has given a bigger voice to micro influencers?
There's so many definitions on what a micro would be versus a macro. We work with influencers across so many different content categories, actually different publishing platforms, influencers in over 100 countries. And so there's a lot of ways to slice what we work with. We are working with influencers who are producing content professionally, regularly, in a way that provides massive value to their readership. And when we look at, quality today, when I say quality versus quality when I started my, blogging back in 2010, it used to be, how nice your photos were. And that was like, if you're a good blogger or not, it's basically, can you afford a nice camera or have a boyfriend who can take a nice photo? Today, we actually see that really, more candid in the moment content really converts. And so a lot of the barriers that used to exist have really been broken down, and it's how good are you at building a community. But we, when I talk about the class of 2020, these are newer influencers. These are not influencers who started 10 years ago or 5 years ago. And almost 90% of them actually don't have a blog or another platform. They're actually using a third-party channel like a YouTube or an Instagram or a TikTok. So there's huge opportunity going forward.
Yeah. Another question is, do you think technologies will shape the next normal or simply be a part of the next normal in fashion?
It absolutely shapes what is the next normal. And it's around the tools and innovation. We are investing heavily in people and innovation and bringing people in from really other industries as well. So when, for us, we feel like we have laid the runway for this industry and really pioneered it. And we're now focused on actually elevating our talent and our technology. And so a few of the people that we've brought in lately Jeff Dawson, who's our CFO, he took Match.com public. Obviously a large consumer mobile application, and a family of products there. Bill Bowden, we've just hired. He is our CTO. He was previously CTO of mobile computing at IBM. Okay. We've also brought on Kit Ulrich, who was the youngest ever CPO, Chief Product Officer of a publicly traded company. She was at Shutterstock, Weight Watchers, and then a venture partner at FirstMark. The reason I go through these things is I'm trying to express to you how important the technology that you're building is, and how people from other industries are seeing what's happening here and bringing their careers here. So when I talk through, Bill or Jeff or Kit, these are people who are highly sought after, who are very aware of their career path and what their next choice means for them. And they're voting on this industry. They're coming from, technology and consumer completely outside of, they're not influencers themselves. They don't have kids that are influencers. They just understand this is where things are headed, and absolutely technology will drive the next chapter.
Yeah. And then we have one more question here. Working with fashion influencers who have many looks to show their audience, does it, and if so, how does that play a role in sustainability? Do you see more sustainability focus in the influencer realm due to COVID?
I see a much more focus on utility during COVID. And so when we look at the products that are kind of being promoted, it's not just fashion. So whereas rewardStyle started in fashion, it used to be 90% of what we did. Now it's closer to actually like half or a little bit less than half. And so you're looking across home, across beauty and fitness, grocery even. So there's a lot more happening than just in the clothing space. And I think the great thing is there's so many influencers today that there's someone for everyone. So if you're someone who actually cares a lot about sustainability, there's actually a huge group of influencers that you can follow that fit that lifestyle. And I think what people often overlook with influencers is that you are opting into the people that you follow. So if someone's not living a lifestyle that you agree with, or you just don't even like the color of their clothes, you don't have to follow them. This is a choice that you're making. Certainly sustainability is becoming important on a cultural and global level. And we see that reflected in the products people are choosing, how many times they're featuring those products. And so, you might see influencers starting to build, a capsule fall wardrobe, and they'll show you 500 ways to wear that wardrobe, or you'll see the same product over and over again. And that's in part a reflection of just their rewardStyle analytics. They know, for example, that a certain sweater sells for them, and so they're going to wear it once a week for the whole rest of this season and continue to move that product. So it is at play.
Yeah. And I think we have time for one last question. What does the future hold for influencer marketing, and how can fashion brands and entrepreneurs take advantage of this moment?
Yeah, a couple things. So I would say take a moment to reassess and be completely intellectually honest about where your customer is. So just because they were on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube or in a magazine or watching a TV show 6 months ago, they might not be there right now. So where is it that they're doing the thing that you need them to do? So be honest about what that platform is and where you're spending your money. Understand that we live in a nation of niche and algorithms, and that requires scale. So you would be able to work with, think of it like a blockbuster movie, like that. Those used to happen, and now it's on Netflix and it's telling me, Amber, because you watch these 5 shows, you'd like these other 5 shows. And there's so much content. It's also personalized that in order to be in enough consumers' feeds, it's not just knocking out the one influencer that you think is the popular girl or guy. It's actually that doing influencer marketing very well requires scale. I think another thing is that the correct way to think about influencer marketing is as your new sales force. So we're seeing more and more brands that are not launching through multi-brand. They're actually launching direct to consumer. The multi-brand model is fading, and that's a whole nother, I think, conversation. But as they move direct to consumer, then they're trying to find consumers. Where are those consumers? Well, they're entertaining themselves for free on social media. who's creating the content, social media, influencers. And so, and many of these people, of course, right now are not launching physical retail stores. And so you don't have a physical sales force there guiding purchasing. So you should really be thinking about influencer as your new sales force. When you think about this level of scale, it requires massive rationalization. And so you have to think about what are you measuring, and think about what are you actually trying to get to? Like a lot of times when someone's new in influencer marketing, they'll say, oh, well, I worked with this influencer and they had X million followers and they got so many likes and saves and shares. And then today that's really not enough, whether you're publicly traded or a small private company. It's really think about what is it that you're actually trying to achieve. And if it's sales, then focus on influencers that drive sales. And I think then from an influencer perspective, it's being cross-channel, it's being cross-vertical, it's being the guide, the big sister, that's giving them all the insights and information. It's not being the hero that doesn't respond to comments and wears things that are completely unattainable or stays at hotels and doesn't tag where they are. The go-go days are kind of the Wild West, where you used to be able to, be successful economically as an influencer by being the hero, I believe, are older. And the way that you're going to build wealth and be the infinite player as an influencer is your ability to drive sales. So you have to think about what are people doing now? What are they doing the next few months? And then how do you create content that allows you to be their best friend and guide all the purchases they're going to be making over that time?